Okay, sit yourself on your lift and then into cross-legged position. So a little wriggle about to make sure that you feel evenly placed, and hold onto your knees. Hold onto your knees and lift and open your chest, and then draw your shoulders down away from your ears. So it's a good way to just stretch out of your sleep. So lift up into the chest, drawing the shoulders down away from your ears. Spend a few moments just listening to the breath, breathing in and out through the nose if you can. And trying to consciously still the breath. Observe that the breath sounds similar to the gentle sound of the waves at the beach at sunset. So listen to the breath and try and synchronize your breath with the movement of the waves. As you inhale, you draw the waves into the beach. As you exhale, you push the wave back into the sea. Feel the warmth on your skin. Hear the birds in the sky. Release your knees, bring your hands into Namaste. Just continue to sit on the beach. Just observing the breath. And with an exhalation, draw your chin down to meet your chest. Just feel the stretch at the back of the neck. And spend a moment to seek to generate a genuine, heartfelt sense of gratitude for something or someone or somewhere. Hold on to that feeling of abundance in the heart area, and then release the backs of your hands down towards your knees. Palms facing upwards, and as you raise your head, allow your eyes to softly open and the focus to softly come back. Just hold on to your knees, lift and open the chest, driving the spine upwards. Take a deep inhalation in through the nose. And then turn to the right side with the out breath. Using each subsequent exhalation to intensify the rotation of the spine. And then come back to the center. Just spend a moment just to observe, observe the difference in the feeling of the spine from the turn. And then take a deep inhalation and then turn to the left. Just feeling that you're just waking up the spine. And by waking up the spine, you wake up the brain. Just focus on the breath. Using the breath to turn a little more deeply. And then come back to the center. Just hold onto your knees for a moment. Just observe the outcome of the spine. Maybe there's a feeling of gentle stimulation in the spine. And then just come off your lift and then just come onto all fours. So be on all fours with your hands underneath your shoulders and your knees underneath your hips. Just have a little wriggle about in the hips just to kind of warm up and open up the hips, and then come back to neutral. So I want you to come into the cow pose, which is lifting the seat bones and the tailbone up towards the ceiling, and then elevating the chest from the abdomen to the diaphragm to the collarbone to the chin. So the cow pose is where we try and draw the shoulder blades in towards the spine. We turn the tailbone up towards the ceiling and feel the stretch of the front of the body. And then the cat pose, which is turning the tailbone in and drawing the chin in towards the chest so the back rounds. So the back becomes longer than the front momentarily. So it's a nice way to just stretch out tension from the spine. And then come back to neutral. So it's this anterior, exterior tilt in action of the pelvis that I want you to be really conscious of. So it's lifting the seat bones and the tailbone up towards the ceiling. But actually, if you just focus on the seat bones and the tailbone, then you get a little bit stuck. So just think about the pelvic girdle. So just sit back on your heels for a moment. Maybe just come up onto your knees and then find that bony bit of the pelvis at the front. So it's right at the front, the pelvic girdle. So it kind of reaches around the sides, but feel that bony bit right at the front. It's like a little blade of bone at the front. So that's the kind of front of the pelvic girdle. So just come back onto your knees and then come into the cow pose, lifting the seat bones and the tailbone. But what I want you to really notice is how close you can bring the front rim of the pelvis into the tops of the thighs. So really, so when you're kind of not thinking about the tailbone so much, but thinking about the front rim of the pelvis, the extension is a little deeper. So keep the front rim of the pelvis drawing into the tops of the thighs, and then lengthen the front chest without allowing that pelvis to leave the thighs. So lift from the abdomen to the diaphragm to the collarbone to the chin. So when the tailbone is turning outwards, the front rim of the pelvis comes towards the fronts of the thighs. And then tuck the tailbone in and follow the journey of the pelvis. So when you tuck the tailbone in, the pelvis is lifting all the way up towards the abdomen. So if you keep lifting the front rim of the pelvis up, then the tailbone turns in even more. Tuck the chin in. And then just release. So it's this kind of, just do it a couple of times, that kind of anterior, posterior pelvic move. So it's drawing the front rim of the pelvis towards the legs. We might call that dropping the pelvis, dropping the front rim of the pelvis. Turning the tailbone in, we might call lifting the front rim of the pelvis up towards the abdomen. So just come back to your center point. Just have your little fingers on the edge of the mat, spread the fingers really wide, tuck your toes, turn your toes under, step back a little, and then come up into dog down. Let's come up with bent knees initially. And what we want to happen is the tailbone and the seat bones to lift up towards the ceiling. So rather than kind of focusing on the tailbone and the seat bones, I want you to focus on the front rim of the pelvis. Draw that front rim of the pelvis in towards the tops of the thighs. And then hopefully your shoulder blade region draws inwards. So keep the front rim of the pelvis drawing towards the tops of the thighs, and then straighten the legs. And then as you straighten the legs, it's harder to keep the front rim of the pelvis in contact with the thighs. So keep drawing that front rim of the pelvis down into the tops of the thighs. And then notice how if you are spreading your fingers, you're spreading your palms, and you're distributing the weight of the hands throughout the palms, not just in the heel of the hand. The more you work into that pelvic region, the lighter the arms become. So breathe evenly and deeply, listening to the breath. If you're overdoing it in the lumbar, then draw your belly button towards your spine. Lengthen the sacrum skin down to the tailbone a little. So we're kind of dropping the front rim of the pelvis in towards the legs. Okay, and then step your feet forwards, just come up into a standing position, and then get your blocks for half uttanasana. Now, half uttanasana is a standing forward bend, and where we really benefit from these anterior, posterior pelvic movements is in forward bending. So standing forward bending, seated forward bending, they all really benefit from this conscious action of the pelvis. So have your feet hip width apart, sorry, not hip width apart, as wide apart as your mat, with the outside edge of the feet in line and turning your big toes in. Have your hands on your hips. So if you can, have your index fingers pressing onto that front rim of the pelvis. Lift up into the chest. And then we're going to come forwards, but if you come forwards from the back, then you get stuck almost immediately. There's no way, you see people, oh, I can't touch my toes, and it's because you're trying to do it from your back. So if you do it from the hips, then you're more likely to get down lower. So lift up into the chest. At this stage, in the kind of Tadasana stage, we lift the front rim of the pelvis up towards the abdomen, so that the tailbone draws itself inwards. And then hinge at the hips, keep the pelvis lifting out of the body if you like, and then try and draw the front rim of the pelvis forward, still up into the chest. But we're trying to draw it into draw the front rim of the pelvis at the same time into the tops of the legs. So you really hinge at the hips. If you can go down any lower, keep that action in the front rim of the pelvis, drawing almost up towards the chest, but in towards the legs as you come down. So see how far you can come. Be careful of coming too far if you've got back problems. So see, the more you can tilt that pelvis, the more you can lengthen the spine, and the more perhaps you can come down into the pose. So if you can reach around the backs of your heels, then do, but make the hinge action happen from the hips. Drawing the front rim of the pelvis firmly into the tops of the thighs, but also lengthening the front rim of the pelvis towards the chest, so the back remains straight. So think about that action of tilt in the pelvis, and then come back into half uttanasana, and then bring your hands into your hips, bend your knees on the way up if you need to, and then come down, come up into a standing position. So if you think about it, your hips are like the hinge of a door, and when you kind of close a door, the door remains rigid and it just kind of moves directly on the hinge, so it doesn't kind of suddenly go flimsy as you close it. So conversely, if that's the right word, as you come forwards, this is what always wants to happen. So the door, if your chest is the door, then your door starts to become really flimsy, and then you do less work here and more work in the spine. So I want you to keep the door really like a door. So if the upper body is the door, then when you come forwards, that door should stay entirely reliant on the hinges. So when you come down, you're not allowing the chest to round at all. You're keeping here really, really, really lifted. So just one more time, just have your feet hip width apart. If you've got back problems, then you're better off just going, working in that way, but then coming halfway and then bringing your hands onto here, but you can still work that pelvic hinge. So have your feet hip width apart, have your hands on your hips. Actually bring your thumbs into the armpits like you're holding onto your dungarees. So your thumbs underneath the armpits, fingers outstretched, just so that you can keep the chest, really focus on the chest, and then hinge, close the door, but keep the door rigid. So you're focusing solely on the hinging of the hips. Solely on the hinging of the hips. And once you find that you need to start rounding your back, then you've gone too far. So just bring your hands back onto the floor or onto the blocks. And then again, just continue to draw that front rim of the pelvis into the tops of the thighs, projecting the chin and the chest forwards. And then just come up into a standing position, bending your knees on the way up if you need to. So just give me a little thumbs up, sideways down, if that made any difference, if you could feel the difference when you were coming forward. So just give me a little indication whether you could feel any difference. So okay, so there's some that is a yes, some that aren't sure, that's fine. So just be in Tadasana, so inner edge of the feet together, and then just again, so even in Tadasana we've got this, there's a lot more restriction because the spine is like where it is, but there is still some anterior posterior tilt of the pelvis. So draw in Tadasana, draw the front rim of the pelvis up towards the abdomen, and that action is really useful even when you come forwards, of lifting that pelvic region up into the abdomen, up into the chest, because it puts the spine in the right place. Just breathe evenly in through the nose, out through the nose, just activating the legs, activating that pelvic region, lifting up into the chest. Stretch your arms out in front, interlock the fingers, turn the palms all the way out, and then raise your arms over your head. Don't lose the pelvis. Lift the front rim of the pelvis up towards the abdomen, up towards the chest. so the tailbone gently draws in. Release your arms and then swap the interlock of the fingers, turn the palms all the way out. Raise your arms over your head. Keeping the focus on that pelvic region. And then just gently release your arms. Just be in Tadasana and just observe how perhaps you've brought some energy into the shoulders, into the arms, into the chest. Breathing evenly. Bring your arms out nice and wide in toward your chest, and then step or jump the feet apart. Turn your left toes in steeply and the right leg and foot all the way out, and then swing the hips forwards. Now we usually have blocks, or we often have blocks for the hands, but if you really need them, just put them there. But otherwise, let's try it without blocks. So at this stage, just feel where that front rim of the pelvis is. So for me, because I haven't turned this leg very much, then this back leg pelvis is further away from the front edge of the mat than my front leg pelvis. So I'm going to pick up the heel and then turn, Tadasanaize this leg, really turn this leg really deeply, and then turn the heel all the way out and then bring the heel down, and then the pelvis is level. But we often just focus really deeply on this front leg, and we often forget, on this back leg, and we forget about the front leg. So turn the front of the thigh inwards in Tadasana, in the front leg as well. Keep your hands on your hips, lift from the pelvis up into the chest. And then keep the pelvis reaching up towards the chest, and then hinge at the hips like that door of the chest. Keeping the chest really straight, wholly reliant on the hips. And then we're lifting the pelvis up towards the chest, but then drawing the pelvis into that front leg. And then bring the hands down. If you need the blocks, then put them there. So just work to really dig that front leg pelvis into the leg. So you're effectively turning the tailbone in. Keep extending the spine away. Keep turning both legs inwards. Find length to lengthen that front rim of the pelvis deeply into the top fronts of the thighs. And then keep drawing that pelvis in towards the top of the leg. And then just start to walk your hands towards the back foot. But again, we're coming forwards with a straight back. Like the door still doesn't bend. It comes from the hinge. So walking body forwards. So walking the arms back, stretching the front chest forwards. Just breathing evenly. So it should be strong in the hamstrings of the front leg. Okay, bring your hands forwards. And then bend that front leg, step in with the back leg, and then come up into Tadasana. And then come back into a good Tadasana. Just be in Tadasana and just observe how the pose has affected the physical body. Where it was stretching, can you feel warmth and extension and space and energy? Bring your arms out nice and wide in towards the chest, and then step or jump, go wide with your legs, and then turn your right toes in, the left leg and foot all the way out, and then swing the hips. So turn that back leg, turn that back heel, and then bring the hands into the hips, into that pelvic region. Turn both legs inwards. So we turn the front leg from the little toe side to the big toe side, the back leg from the little toe side to the big toe side. So the back of the leg broadens outwards, so the hip is level. Lift up into the chest, drawing that front rim of the pelvis up to the chest, and then hinge at the hips, keeping that focus of lifting the pelvis towards the chest, but then drawing the pelvis into that front leg, and then reach down and find the floor or use the blocks. So keep that. If you feel like you're rounding your back, then just come to the block so that you can extend the chest rather than round it. So go back to that hinge of the hips. Keep turning the legs inwards. That gives you more access, more space into the hips. Drawing that front rim of the pelvis deeply into the top of the leg, and then start to walk your hand towards the back leg. Just breathing, evenly turning those legs, keeping the spine long, keeping the spine straight like the door. Okay, bring the hands forwards, bend that front leg, and then hop in with the back leg, and then come back up into Tadasana. Just come back into Tadasana, lifting that front rim of the pelvis up towards the abdomen, so the tailbone turns in, turning the legs in the same direction as you were doing in parsvottanasana. Breathing evenly, deeply listening to the sound of the breath. And then come down onto your front. Have your hands underneath your shoulders, your tuck your toes under, and then come up into dog down. But again, just being mindful of the hinge rather than the flexible door. So when you're up in dog down, keep lengthening the pelvis up to the chest, and then trying to draw the front rim of the pelvis into the tops of the thighs. Just breathing evenly, deeply listening to the breath. And then bring the feet together. Bring the inner edge of the feet together, big toes touching in the middle of the mat. So still in dog down, and then you can spread your left toes. And then without disturbing the pelvic girdle, we're going to raise the right leg up towards the ceiling. So the left toes are stay on the floor, and you raise just the right leg. See if you can get that leg in line with the spine, but keeping that pelvic girdle level. So as you lift that leg, the lifted leg pelvis will want to lift up towards the ceiling, so you kind of turn outwards. But keep that leg rotating inwards like you were doing in parsvottanasana. In many ways, this is the same as parsvottanasana, isn't it, or similar? Bring that leg down, just reset in the middle, big toes together, spread the toes of the right foot, and then lift the left leg. Turning the leg inwards, keeping that pelvic girdle level. So the lifted leg hip wants to raise up higher, so you've got to rotate that leg. And then bring the leg down, and then come down onto your knees. Just sit back on your heels. And then just observe. Just observe your energy. Just observe your energy in your legs and in the pelvis, and in the chest and the arms and the neck. That feeling of lightness from within. Okay, create a little step to sit on with a couple of blocks. You might, so we can do malasana, the cobbler pose. So you might need some extra height here. So if you need extra height, then just you fold up your blanket so it's quite kind of tightly folded, and then put more on top of there. And then maybe if you've got another couple of blocks, have some blocks for the sides. So just have whatever, so you don't necessarily need that much height, but some people will need height like that. So just sit on the two on the blocks, and then just roll over, move the buttock flesh out to the side, and then just come into dandasana. So dandasana again relies on this hinge. It wants to, often the body wants to do this when we sit down, doesn't it? But can you draw that front rim of the pelvis up and forward into the tops of the thighs? And then we're going to draw the legs in. So we've got to try and keep the heels down. These blocks at the side are to help you to lift up if you kind of struggle to lift. Otherwise, you're going to lift out of the arms up into the chest, and then propel yourself forwards so that you lift off the blocks. So your knees are wide enough to bring the chest through, and then draw that front rim of the pelvis into the tops of the thighs, lifting the chest, and then coming forwards and coming down, drawing that front rim of the pelvis deeply into the tops of the thighs. Just breathing evenly, trying to draw that front rim of the pelvis into the thighs, lengthening the front chest. Smile. Release the jaw. Breathe evenly. Okay, and then just gently glide yourself back. Just come into cross legs, and then just observe the energy that flows around your back, around the lumbar, around the legs, just finding that lightness. So you could say that the pelvis is the center of our energy, or one of our centers of energy. So if you're in cross legs now, just feel that you can radiate energy out of the pelvic region, up into the chest, out into the legs. So we can pelvicize our focus, our energetic focus. Just observe that when you pelvicize your energy, there's much less perceivable effort in lifting the chest and extending the spine, and staying upright. And then just bring the feet together. We'll go back up into malasana again. So bringing the feet in, just holding onto the knees, lifting up into the chest, reaching up, and then just propelling yourself forwards, or just using whichever method you need to come up. And then focusing the action on the pelvis, drawing the pelvis into your legs, immediately starts to lift the chest. So draw that front rim of the pelvis into the fronts of the thighs, and then keep activating that front rim of the pelvis, drawing it into the thighs until the body starts to come down lower. Keeping the heels down if you can. Pelvisizing your energy, radiating out from the pelvis into the legs and the chest and the arms and the head. And then come back to the center. Just cross your legs the kind of unnatural way. Just hold onto your knees and feel that the pelvis radiates its energy. And just be receptive to that energy. And then extend your legs away. So stay sitting on the blocks, and then see if you can find your belt. And then just get the belt and swing the belt around your feet. Push your feet firmly into the belt, hold onto the belt like you're riding a horse. And then I want you to lengthen from the hips into the heels, really activating the legs into the floor, pushing the kneecaps into the backs of the knees, pushing the fronts of the thighs down through into the backs of the thighs. And then come to the pelvis. Lift the front rim of the pelvis up into the abdomen, into the chest. So the chest lifts. Now, if you've got a back problem, then just stay at this stage. Just feel that liberation of the lift of the chest that just comes from that pelvic region. Pelvisize your energy. If you can come forwards, if you've got no problem with the back, then just come forwards just a little bit at a time. And each time just go back to the pelvis and reset the pelvis. Draw the front rim of the pelvis into the tops of the thighs just a little, but still lifting up into the chest. If you can find your feet, then do it, but not at the expense of making a flimsy door. Keep the door rigid. Rigid isn't really the right word, but that's what, that's what a door is. So we're trying to keep the spine firm like a door. Keep drawing the front rim of the pelvis into the tops of the legs. And as you come forwards, keep lifting the pelvis up to the collarbone, but then down into the thighs. If you can reach around your feet, then do. Keep the action pelvisized, keep the energy radiating out from the pelvis into the body. Just coming forwards a little at a time. But as soon as you feel that the door is becoming flimsy, then go back to the hips, go back to the pelvis, that hinge of the hips, and then reactivate the pelvis, drawing the rim of the pelvis into the thighs so you can lift the chest. And then gently come back to the center. Just observe that sense of quietness that comes from releasing out of a forward bend, and then just come back into crossed legs. You can just do the normal way this time. And then just observe your energy. Observe how coming out of that forward bend suddenly brings a rush of clean energy into the front of the body. Just observe that energy. And aim to distribute it evenly throughout the body with the breath. Focus, open your eyes. If you're closing your eyes, lift up into the chest and then turn to the right right side, maintaining that feeling of energetic lift as you turn. Just feel that the energy does the work for you. So if you're working beyond your energy, then you exhaust yourself. Just you find your level by connecting with that physical energy within the physical body. Come back to the center. Just hold onto the knees, lift and open the chest, and then turn to the left. Again, being observant of the energy that you have been creating and lifting and elevating. Use that to intensify the turn. And then come back to the center. Just hold onto your knees. Just close your eyes for a moment, and then again just acquaint yourself with the energy of the body, how the body feels after each of the poses. Maybe there's a perceivable feeling of physical lightness. Let's go back to the beach. Go back to the breath. So listening to the breath and observing that it sounds similar to the waves just gently lapping into the beach and descending back into the sea. Feeling the sun on your skin. Hearing the birds in the sky. Maybe the gentle chatter of people around you. As you inhale, you connect to the ocean and draw the waves close to the body, but you stay dry. As you exhale, you send that water back into the sea. As you inhale compassion and joy. As you exhale, you release tension and frustration. So we inhale compassion and joy, and we exhale tension and frustration. And then just bring the breath back to normal. Just gently open your eyes. And just staying with our kind of beach theme, we'll go into our restorative surfboard pose. So just get your bolster. If you've got something for underneath your shins, then that's nice to have something underneath your shins. Have your blanket just sitting on top of the block that's going to support your head. Remember, when you come forward, you have to, so the kind of pelvis is kind of at the end of the bolster, but it depends on your kind of body length. So the most important thing is that your head is free at the top of the bolster. So just bring your head down. If you're wearing glasses, it's good to take them off. Just resting your forehead on the bolster, on the block, sorry, and then just stretching your legs out, just relaxing into the bolster. And then go back to your ocean breathing. Observe what you're doing with your hands. Is one hand clenched, the other relaxed? Try and relax both hands. Try and relax both legs, both arms. Feel that your energy radiates out from the pelvis region into the legs and into the chest, into the arms, into the head. So you can do your back breathing into the top of the back and stretching out into the armpits, and then releasing with a normal exhalation, then into the middle of the back, out into the side ribs, and then the normal exhalation, and then down into the tailbone region and out into the hips, and then rotating around those 3 breaths. And then bring your hands underneath your shoulders and then push yourself up onto your knees. Just bring your knees at either side of the bolster and then just stretch gently forwards in the child's pose, just resting your head on one side. And then just rotate to the other when you're ready. Rotate your head onto the other side when you're ready. And just alternate. And then just gently bring your hands underneath your shoulders and then sit yourself up into your heels. And just observe your energy as you come out of the forward bend. And then just sit yourself on your bolster, just come into a cross-legged position. Just find your comfort in cross legs, bring your hands into Namaste. Close your eyes and then draw your breath in through your nose down into the abdomen. Be conscious of the energy that you have released through your practice this morning. Good, clean, light energy brings positivity to the body and to the mind. And then gently draw your chin down to meet your chest. Spend a moment to seek to acknowledge the positive energy you've created inside. And then radiate some of that energy out into the world. And then very gently release the backs of your hands down towards your knees, palms facing upwards. And as you raise your head, allow your eyes to softly open and the focus to softly come back. Thank you very much. So hopefully you feel as though you have really released your good, positive energy, and there's lots of good energy to put into your day. So thank you very much for joining me.